Welcome to Weekend 1. I'm Shirtika Pillay. As the country celebrates Heritage Weekend, I'm wearing a sari as I celebrate my Indian heritage. Our show today gives you a quick wrap of some of the top stories and interviews on eNCA over the past week. So let me bring you up to speed with some of our top stories. The country reels under the effect of ongoing rolling blackouts. Police union Pop Crew says it's planning to strike if their demands are not heard by the president. And Nelson Mandela Bay gets a new mayor. The debate about zama-zamas or illegal miners continues to draw attention. This follows the horrific gang rape of 8 women at a disused mine in Krugersdorp in July and the recent discovery of 10 bodies near Rudaport. On Sunday, several parliamentary committees conducted an oversight visit to disused mines in Johannesburg and were shocked by the scale of illegal mining. eNCA's Heidi Jokos was there and filed this report.
These daring zama-zama operate in broad daylight. An oversight visit by multiple portfolio committees include Mineral Resources, Energy and Home Affairs. It's hoped to stop illegal minings in their tracks. During their tour, parliamentaries saw firsthand the reach of illegal mining and its complex network of players. Allegations of police and army personnel participation within this network has dampened hopes of ending the scourge.
We must appreciate the magnitude of the challenge and what needs to be done. But we also must appeal to our communities, because in some of the areas where we go, you find the same communities that are complaining that they are being terrorized. We know that in some areas we're told that there is a curfew declared by the Zama-Zamas that by 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, no one is willing to walk on the street. But in some areas where you go, people will feel that, and this is what we're told, and somewhere we experience something similar to that, where they want to protect these actions.
10 alleged kingpins to date have been nabbed and police have their sights on more arrests.
The police are busy following up on the syndicates. They are following up on the kingpins, because those we see here digging the ground are not the ultimate beneficiaries. There's somebody who's at the top there who's benefiting.
Communities living in the area where the 10 bodies were found in Gauteng are at their wits' end.
There must be a political will to resolve this issue. There must be a political will. So we've had many people come in and out over the years, come and view the problem and just do nothing. And that's where it dies. What we are saying to the political heads, that let there firstly be a political will, because there's been 3 environmental impact assessment tests done on this ground. It is unhealthy for human habitation.
The committees will continue their site visits in provinces with Mpumalanga next in line. Once concluded, the committees will begin planning tactful interventions to the problem. Heidi Jokos in Johannesburg.
The week kicked off on a dark note with the implementation of Stage 6 power cuts to avert the collapse of the national grid. The city of Johannesburg says it can't rely on Eskom anymore and plans to switch to City Power's own electricity generation measures. eNCA's senior reporter, Aviwe Mtila, has the story for us.
One of the substations around Johannesburg that have blown up over the weekend due to overloading post-load shedding that have left many communities in the dark. Now, this just only adds fuel to the frustrations that many people around Johannesburg have over load shedding.
I'm more productive at home. This is horrible. We can't have load shedding during peak hours. No, honestly.
This is like an actual economy disaster area because businesses just want to close shop because they're struggling to survive and make ends meet.
Losing production while you lose money. You got people sitting here supposed to be working with the hand machines, with electricity. Now, when there isn't enough electricity, then all that comes to a standstill.
This is just one of the holes that the acting CEO of City Power says the Zama-Zamas are using in their illegal operations. Now, here at the Rudaport substation alone, 3.5 million rands worth of cables were stolen over the weekend, which has left many communities without power for at least 3 days here.
Cable thieves were able to get into the substation during load shedding and steal the cables. So we are facing all these dynamics, and of course our residents have to suffer, our businesses have to suffer. We understand the problem that our residents have to face. So we are saying by the end of this year, December 2022, our residents and customers will begin to feel the difference as we start to onboard IPPs and feed more electricity into the grid. We do understand there are many good men and women within Eskom that's trying to do work, but simply we cannot rely on Eskom anymore.
As City Power, City of Johannesburg, the government as well as Eskom scramble to grapple with load shedding, it's the South African economy and its people that continue to suffer the most. Avi Wem Tila, Johannesburg.
Staying with our special focus on the energy crisis, we visited Limpopo where nearly 200 villages face water cuts due to blackouts. The Mogalakwena municipality says because of rolling outages, it's unable to operate its boreholes. eNCA reporter Moloko Moloto compiled this report.
Rolling blackouts by Eskom have become the new normal. While South Africans have seemingly accepted the inconvenience and darkness, in areas around Mokopane in Limpopo, blackouts affect water supply.
Kore ino ba bothata because ge load shedding yona ile gona e ba worse batho ba fumane metsi.
The Mogalakwena municipality says due to a limited budget, it can't afford generators to energize every borehole.
But as I've indicated that we will engage the mining houses. We have got Havenplats and Mogalakwena Anglo Platinum, which assist the municipality quite often when we need help or funding. So I think from now the management will engage with these mining houses so they can help us with purchasing and energizing these boreholes and maybe with solar.
With no end to the current blackouts in sight and no immediate intervention by the municipality to solve the crisis, the question is, who shall stand for the communities whose human rights are being trampled upon? Molu Kumulot, Mokopane, Limpopo.
President Cyril Ramaphosa must listen or else. That's the word from irate police officers who are threatening to strike if their demands aren't met. On Tuesday, members of police union Pop Crew marched to the union buildings and announced plans to strike that would leave the country without protection. eNCA's Pulele Chwiti Jones was there.
Police union Pop Crew has threatened to strike if President Cyril Ramaphosa doesn't listen to its demands. The strike could essentially leave the country without law enforcement. The union, representing police and correctional service officers, want government to look at safety, high crime rates, and under-resourced police stations. They're also demanding wage increases and more police uniform. The union rejected a 3% wage offer tabled by the government. It's demanding 10% dating back from 2021.
This is what is going to happen. We are undermined because at all times we told we are essential service. Everybody tell us we are essential service and we're getting muzzled just because of this thing of being essential service. Today we say this is not a statement of intent. We will go to a strike.
Government has vowed to respond to the union's challenges, which it says are reasonable.
Yeah, obviously we have to take them through the processes of government in the bargaining council and also within cabinet for us to process most of the issues which have been raised. But some of them we can be able to process them in correctional services, the one that are related to correctional services, like the issues of the inmates working, which they are already doing as we speak.
The numbers, the figures of the police on the ground are shocking. I agree with you. Come year 2010, we were 195,000. Now we're 176,000. We're 20,000 down with the population going up. Those are the things that we need to put on the table. And we hope across the government, especially with Treasury, we'll be able to speak and we'll be able to listen.
Disgruntled Pop Crew members have given government 21 days to respond to their demands. Pule Lichiti Jones in Pretoria.
Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, we feature some of the big interviews with key newsmakers done by our anchors. Welcome back to Weekend One. I'm Shritika Pillay. President Cyril Ramaphosa had to cut short an international trip to deal with the electricity crisis at home. eNCA Sally Burdett spoke to Professor Mark Swilling, a member of the National Planning Commission from the Centre for Sustainability Transitions at Stellenbosch University.
Prof, thank you so much for your time. You know, you and I spoke in July, just after the president announced his plan. You had, as part of the NPC, suggested a number of ideas to the president, but one of them was that he call an energy emergency. And as you explained, what that would do, it would have given more power to cut more quickly through red tape, allow more agility in acting on this crisis. He stopped short of declaring an energy emergency. Do you think he should have, and do you think he should now declare one?
It's not clear exactly what an energy emergency would mean in legal terms. And I think in the end, the president did make the right decision by saying we're treating this as an emergency, but we're not going to declare a state of emergency, which is relatively short, and we're not going to create a state of disaster either, like happened with COVID. Instead, reference was made in his July statement to passing special legislation that would make it possible to intervene to cut short some of the bureaucratic procedures that are holding up the process of speeding up the acceleration of new generation capacity.
Have we seen that? Because one of the issues that you flagged is that red tape, particularly around NERSA, for example, needed to be cut. And there was such a sense of urgency in July. Have things happened that we're not aware of in terms of cutting the red tape?
We have seen movement. We have seen the Minister of Environmental Affairs promulgating regulations that would fast forward the environmental impact assessments and so on. So I actually think across the board, there has been movement since the July statement. What South Africans, though, want is immediate solutions. The problem is it takes 2 years to build a renewable energy power plant. And until there's new generation capacity on the grid, we're not going to see an end to load shedding because Eskom can't properly repair and rehabilitate the power stations until they can take those power stations off the grid to work on them. But you can't do that until there's new generation capacity on the grid.
One of the suggestions for a quick fix might be to buy power from big companies, perhaps the Sappies and the Sasols of this world, who are already producing their own electricity. Surely that could be quite a quick fix?
Even buying from large companies does suggest that the necessary capacity is there on scale, and that still has to happen. I would have expected a lot more responses and a lot more projects to come forward for funding in response to the July call. There haven't been that many. So I think there's still some work to be done to understand what's the relatively slow uptake in getting large-scale projects onto the grid that can do what you're suggesting.
eNCA anchor Dan Moyane discussed road safety with Gavin Kelly, CEO of the Road Freight Association, after the horror accident that happened last week in Pongola, where 20 lives were lost, mostly children.
Now, truck drivers are urged to exercise caution on our roads in the wake of recent fatal accidents in KwaZulu-Natal. Well, for more on what is being done to ensure safety on the roads in the trucking industry, I'm joined by Gavin Kelly, the CEO of the Road Freight Association. Gavin, good afternoon. Welcome to Today on eNCA. Thank you very much for your time. What is the association doing to ensure that truck drivers respect the rules of the road?
Definitely not pleasant circumstances under which we sit and chat today. We've had a number of very bad accidents, and I'm sure everyone's seen what's been trending on social media. Well, the first thing is, do realize that the Road Freight Association isn't the Department of Transport, which means that not all transport companies or operators, as they are called in the Act, are required to be registered with the Road Freight Association. Its members of the Road Freight Association are required to abide by a core code, and in that core code various things are stipulated, and amongst them is around road safety, how fleets are operated on the road, and what our members are required to put in place to ensure that they operate safe fleets, but more importantly, that they put in place techniques and systems to identify where there could be possible risks and then to address them, hopefully before they happen, or to rectify whatever could happen, hopefully not something like we've seen in the last couple of days.
Yeah, if the law allows other people not to be part of your association in terms of the trucking industry, I wonder which organization they will belong to. Who's then responsible to make sure on those parts that they adhere to road safety rules? And is there danger that some of them are not properly trained?
Any operator of a vehicle on the roads in South Africa is responsible for the manner in which that vehicle is driven on the public road. So in short, if you're driving your personal private vehicle down the road, you're responsible for how you drive and the condition of that vehicle. If you have a company and there are vehicles registered to your company, and irrespective of what type of company, if you have a fleet, as is determined in the Act, then you, as the owner of those vehicles in that fleet, are responsible for the way in which those vehicles are driven and maintained, et cetera, on a public road. So the buck stops there. Of course, the challenge is, how do we ensure that those fleets actually look after those vehicles, hold their drivers accountable, have systems in place to ensure these sorts of things don't happen? And if they're not doing that, what happens to them?
To be suspended or not suspended, City of Johannesburg Chair of Chairs Colleen Makubele spoke to eNCA anchor Masego Rahlaga about the status of her role in the City of Johannesburg.
Suspension and non-suspension, and now the national leadership confirming today that you're in fact not suspended. When you joined the party, did you ever think that you would be having so much infighting?
Not really, because we actually thought the party has purged out the people that we thought were planted within COPE to split it, to destroy it, you know, and ensure that it doesn't grow. But I think now, having been watching what happened in the past 4 weeks, you know, when I first came in, actually it was Dennis Bloom who used to tell me to say people are in COPE for their own interest. They've been planted either by ANC or this one to come and destroy the party. But I think now my eyes are opening to say, who are these people actually?
Is he one of them, do you think?
I reserve my comments for now, but I'm not denying it from my perspective, because it doesn't make sense for me. For a party leader who's supposed to be a leader, whether you're in the top 5 or not, you're taking instruction from the DA. You want to destroy your own councillor from because of instructions from the DA. You have not sat with me one-on-one like this to understand, Colleen, you are a councillor party representative. We saw you voted differently. What happened?
Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro votes out its mayor, Eugene Johnson, through a no-confidence motion. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Shritika Pillay. The Nelson Mandela Bay Metro has a new mayor. Mayor Eugene Johnson was removed through a no-confidence motion by a multi-party coalition. 62 councillors voted in favour of Johnson's removal and 58 voted against the ACDP-led motion. The DA's Retief Odendaal beat the ANC's Wandisile Jigega by 60 to 59 votes. eNCA's Nceba Nhlanganiso filed this report.
It's been the longest council meeting of Nelson Mandela Bay, over 16 hours of sitting, where we've seen Eugene Johnson voted out as the mayor through a motion of no confidence. And the new mayor from the DA-led coalition is Retief Odendaal from the DA. First and foremost, what do you make of what has transpired in this council meeting from throughout the day till the early hours of the morning?
Well, I think it is very clear for everybody to see that the administration in Nelson Mandela Bay is broken, that council in Nelson Mandela Bay is broken. And I think it is time that all political parties put petty differences aside and start working together to get Nelson Mandela Bay working again. We saw that the ANC was very reluctant to give up power, but it's understandable. It's a 15 billion rand budget, and it's unfortunate for the people of Nelson Mandela Bay that the city is not delivering service anymore. We've seen how we've got 20,000 potholes outstanding, 5,500 sewage leakages, we've got 10,000 streetlights that's not working, and at the end of the day, we have been unable to deliver basic services to our people.
Well, you have touched on some of the things, infrastructure that is dilapidated in the metro. And can you just take us through on the key priorities that you're going to focus as you get into this new position?
Well, I think we have to understand that it's a coalition government, so the coalition will present their turnaround plan for Nelson Mandela Bay very soon. But key priorities we have already agreed upon. Those are obviously unemployment, the fact that we must create an environment where business can thrive so that we can create jobs. The reality is that we have a big water crisis in Nelson Mandela Bay, which is one of our biggest priorities. But because we haven't got water security, no business wants to invest in Nelson Mandela Bay. So those are key priorities. Also, we've got a housing crisis, about 110,000 unit backlog in housing delivery. Up until June this year, the ANC government only delivered 28 RDP houses. It is an absolute crisis that needs to be dealt with. And then, very importantly, we have to start spending money on maintenance of our infrastructure.
South Africa is in a leadership vacuum. That's the word from former President Thabo Mbeki, who was speaking at UNISA this week. He says this is what's led to the economic and energy crises in the country. Pulele Tweety-Jones compiled this report.
Former President Thabo Mbeki has slammed the current government for failing to be proactive in solving the country's many challenges. Mbeki says the lack of leadership in the country and society in general is an enormous problem. Essentially, he says this is why the country may never overcome certain issues, including unemployment and the energy crisis.
In order to dealing with this electricity thing, it sure is to keep the lights on now. But I think to understand the company better, you need to go further back. Who took decisions like that? One explanation I have seen for that, it is said that the managers were in charge of this. It said they want to increase the possibilities for black economic empowerment. So that if you now have 20 contracts, that means 20 black companies. If you had one contract, I suppose means one black company. That's the explanation that was given. But that's part of the crisis. As you can see now, when the ESCOM announces that the reason we're having level 4, level 5, or whatever is because there's a power failure at Mitopi, at Kusile, and the old ones. Why are the new ones behaving in the same way as the old ones? Or misbehaving in the same way? I think we need to understand all of that in order to, as part of the contribution to the solution of the problem of ESCOM.
He argues we need to adopt the neglected African intelligentsia. He says this will allow more input on solutions to some of the problems we face. As Cabinet remains locked in meetings to discuss the energy crisis, Mbeki says what's needed is a concrete plan and not a non-practical long-term vision. Pule Lichiti-Jones in Pretoria.
The role of the ESCOM board and its CEO has come under scrutiny from the ANC and its alliance partners as the electricity crisis worsens. This comes on the sidelines of President Cyril Ramaphosa's meeting with Cabinet at the Union Buildings in Pretoria to deliberate on a way forward. eNCA's senior journalist, Aviwe Mtila, has the story.
As the president meets his cabinet at the Union Buildings over the rolling blackouts, ANC's tripartite alliance partners, COSATU, says this crisis needs to be dealt with urgency.
As COSATU, at some stage, we supported the trade unions that are organizing ESCOM, that the CEO of ESCOM must leave, because it shows that there's a lack of capacity of management. There's no management in that area. It is on that basis COSATU think that government must take a drastic action to address that problem.
The governing African National Congress, who are the policymakers of the country, says it too is seeking answers to the rolling blackouts, as it says its role mustn't be blurred.
No one in the 86 of us elected in the NEC has got anything to do with transmission of energy there. The injunctions we make are on paper. They are policy related.
As Cabinet deliberates on the crisis of the rolling blackouts, a press briefing is expected on Thursday where feedback will be given. Avi Wem Tila, Johannesburg.
And that's a wrap for the Heritage edition of Week in One. From myself and the Week in One team, stay safe.